Welcome, welcome, welcome. We have a whole cast and crew here today, all kinds of people. And we are here for one of the funnest streams that we do with the MMO 101 and 201, and that is the grading stream. And we played 21 different MMOs since we started doing the MMO 101. So super exciting, and we're super excited to grade tonight. We'll be grading Embers Adrift. And I think it's going to be spicy tonight. I think there's going to be a lot of opinions.
Us opinions?
So I'm sure there's going to be people that love it, and I'm sure there's going to be people that don't love it. So I'm going to quickly go around the room because we got to get to this thing because we got to get through this whole thing. So we have Therek, the lore master.
Yellow.
We have Stans in the fire.
Blue.
We have Sparoh, the pet master.
Hello, hello.
We have Cryptfox, the undefeated, even though there is no PvP in Embers Adrift. Oh, he's just giving us away. We have Mujjin, the builder, and Slash Crafter.
Sure, we'll go with that.
We have Nathan, the Napalmer.
The yellow, because P, we'll be talking about that tonight.
Excellent. We have Tetsu, the Charisma Suave, and also Mr. Final Fantasy XI.
Hello.
And Desryn, the dedicated.
Hey.
And last but not least, myself, the wizard trapped in a game that has no magic. Draq.
He's in the wizard tower of his mind.
So you can guess how that's going to go tonight. So we have several different categories that we grade all of our MMOs on. So we're just going to run through them. Everybody's going to have the grade. The color on the screen, the box around everyone's name coordinates with the grade they're going to give. So just to kind of let everybody know how this goes. And Therek is starting things off for us tonight. We got to have Therek is a pro Embers Adrifter, and so we're starting with the positive first. So, Therek, let us know about grouping and rating. What did you give that for a grade?
Well, I gave it an A, and the reasons I gave it an A are it has the correct group size, which is 6. I thought one of the surprising things for me about the grouping in this game was that the resurrection mechanic and how well I think it works. We had a lot of times where the sort of the countdown timer, once you're dead, it adds a lot of tension to the situation because every class can res. It's just a matter of using an item in your inventory, but you got to get to them before it counts down and you're like fully dead, right? So I thought that was an interesting thing that I wasn't expecting. We actually ended up only having a few full wipes, mostly on whatever it was last week with the Bears. But I thought that worked well from a grouping standpoint. I don't know if this fits in the category. No XP loss on death sort of goes in there as well. I was worried it would make things too easy, but it didn't. I think, we sort of saw that losing your bag alone, and given the leveling speed was so slow and XP was hard to come by anyway, it wasn't that bad. So I thought there was a lot of good things working in the death penalty that added to the grouping. On the bad side of things, it got lower a mark, I guess, down from an A+ because of the healing mostly. It's just the idea that healing being so weird in this game is a problem. The other thing I wanted to mention just quickly is the compass only working for your group mates within a certain range, not being fully throughout the zone. I felt like that was just a thing that added frustration more than any kind of real benefit from a grouping standpoint. So it was just one little nitpick I had, but otherwise it's an A.
Nice. Therek slams Embers Adrift with an A, not an A+.
It's group, man. Group-centric.
All right, Mr. Stands in the Fire. What did you give grouping / rating?
Okay, so like Therek, I played in both the 101 and the 201. So again, gonna preface this by saying I did 2 very different group experiences. I had my off-stream character was a Berserker Striker. On the 101, I played a Sentinel Supporter. And in the 201, I played a Juggernaut Defender. And having done those various different grouping experiences, I have to really say that designing necessity is not inherently good design. Like, Therek, you had a lot of negatives for an A.
Yeah, but one was just a small little thing, and the other one was just the healing.
Yeah.
Just the healing.
Healers. Nobody forgets
just
about
the
your
Those
healer, right?
healers are
Just the
whiny
healing.
anyway.
an entire pillar of the group experience is so frustrating in this game.
Apparently,
really
1/3 of
ridiculous.
the classes don't receive 1/3 of the grade.
Therek
No.
did not play a
Not how the
healer.
map goes.
No.
No.
No. So with grouping, the positives are that there was a lot of stuff to kill that was group appropriate, and I really have to give them credit for the chevron system that they used. Lots of different games have some form of ways to designate a same level but more difficult mob type. They can call them elites or signatures or hero mobs or whatever. You can change the frame. The simple use of chevrons is really effective in communicating what you are going up against. So I like that, and I like the relatively clean UI when the UI actually showed you the people in your party. Again, once you get past about 15 feet away, they disappear. So,
Yeah.
little bit of an issue there. But ultimately, because everything is so short range, unless you have somebody who's playing with a bow, which is a very small portion of the group, it's just a cluster of people all crowding around whatever mob with no mob marking abilities and often very little visual distinction when everybody's slammed up against each other. And you just kind of ring around the rosy, and there's a mosh pit of chaos, and you hope that your numbers line up better than the enemy's numbers and that you don't die. It's most of the way there. I gave it a C+. If it was just in the tanking experience, it would have gotten higher, but there's way too much other frustration.
Plus.
And I also want to point out that I start grades at a C. A C is a perfectly fine, acceptable unit of
Average, right?
Of average, yeah.
Yeah.
So C+, this is above average. It's not, I'm not going to say like, hey, anything below a B is bad. It's, I'm not playing that game. There's got to be room to go up and down.
Same excuse I gave my parents too.
If you haven't joined any of our other grading streams, Stands in the Fire uses both calculus and geometry to configure the perfect grade to reach the penultimate and most accurate grade possible.
That's the reason why I went back to grad school, honestly.
I
need to understand Stans.
Cryptfox is just trying to understand Stans' grading.
These get degrees? Is that where we're back to?
That's where I'm totally
Not
at.
in grad
always.
school, I tried.
Sparoh, what did you think of grouping / rating?
All right. Well, I kept all the healing stuff out of this because we have a class spells and skills category, and that's where I'm putting that. So this is strictly just the grouping together, and it said rating, which we didn't do. But I loved the group aspect. You could solo. They had the single chevrons, like Stans was pointing out. They have a system, so you could solo certain mobs. But if you wanted to do dungeons or more difficult content with 2 and 3 chevron, you needed a group. They have a looking for group UI tool, I guess you would call it. It's not a dungeon finder that ports you to your group or anything, but it helps you put together a group or say what you're looking for in what zone, different categories and things. So that was really helpful. We didn't raid, but we did see giant bears and turtles, and they looked like they'd be a lot of fun. We even one night just couldn't resist and had to run up and die by the turtle. So that would be a lot of fun to go back and say, hey, remember that giant turtle or giant bear when we were lower level? Let's go back and raid it or something. And there's many types of group compositions because they have, I believe it's 3 healers, 3 tanks, 3 DPS. So there's a lot of different combinations. You're not kind of stuck. We only can have a duelist or a sentinel or whatever healing. So I gave it an A+, strictly just on the grouping. They're looking for group tool and having different levels of mobs to be able to fight.
Nice. Love the grouping. All right, Mr. Cryptfox, what did you think?
See, well, for grouping, I don't know. Like it was fun at first, figuring out the game. Uh, but getting lost, no compass, hard to orientate myself to the map. Um, it was just kind of cumbersome running around just to get to a group or whatnot. And mind you, I played a lot less than everybody else here. Um, I played the Marshall, I think it was, and just the experience of like tanking is really hard. Uh, One, you got to get used to like positionings in such a way so that your abilities still go off even if the mob does move. And the range of the taunts and things are AoE based, uh, like ground reticle, I guess, instead of designating a target and then the ability going off. But then you have to struggle with like the position base, so your ability cannot go off. It just makes it very hard to like get aggro and keep aggro and things like that. That's my biggest frustration. I'm sorry, I probably jumped ahead to class, but group experience. I don't know. I always had a group because I was playing with these guys. Outside of that, my experience is minimal. Like I would have to play for maybe like 30, 40 minutes before I get a group. So it didn't really impact my experience gameplay wise. Killing stuff solo or with a group didn't really feel punished doing either. I gave it a C.
Giving it the C. Perfect.
Go C.
Mujjin, what did you think about grouping and rating?
Start off that I like to have numbers on my EXP bar, not a percentage. That made it drag out even more, made it more punishing. For me at least, I don't know about you, but I like numbers for my EXP. Group size 6, I like that, so who gets a higher grade for that? We didn't raid, so I'll say I'm gonna give it a B overall.
I don't think there actually is rating. Maybe Nathan, maybe you know. There's not actually raid targets in the game, right?
Well, I would assume right now that the world bosses are definite things that you got to be really high level to take those on. Like the giant bosses roaming each zone.
Okay.
There may be more than that, but I know that at the very least there is that.
I think they said that there is no raid, actual like legit raid
Right.
at this time.
But you can't even form a raid, right? Like
No,
Yeah, there's no raid party, right?
there's
right.
no raid. There's no raid
so.
function. No
So
raid
at the end of the
target.
day, one group's getting credit and the loot of the kill.
Right.
Yeah.
Aren't the 4 chevrons supposed to be taken on by 2 groups or something like that, or really high? Or much higher level group?
I don't know. I never
not
saw
sure.
anything that was 4 chevrons. All right,
Yeah,
Mr.
I thought I.
Some of the named ones, maybe.
I don't remember if there was 4 or not.
I
I
thought
don't
the
remember
turtle
seeing
was
4.
3.
I'm
Yeah,
afraid
there's-
I'm starting.
I thought
to
it was
think
just
about
super high level.
Vanguard. Yeah, yeah.
Nathan, what do you think about grouping and rating?
You know, I feel like the grouping was exactly what I like, right? Now, keep in mind, I played 2 characters, but they're both tanks, okay? And the tanking is a lot of fun, man. There's a lot that goes into it. The resource management and the abilities and when you use them and switching aggro is super fun because you can cool it down in various different ways. And it just felt like a really old school grouping experience to me as a tank and a paladin lover. I loved it. I thought the mechanics of working together were really fun from my perspective. And I love that it's the first game in forever to do camping. Like that's legitimate. Like you camp to level up and with your group. And I thought that was super fun. I like going to the exile camp. I like with other groups going into dungeons. I liked honestly, all the group gameplay I've had a blast with. So I gave it an A+.
A+. Nathan's chat saying you're a little quiet, and I actually have you at 200% in Discord. Could you give me a little bump on your microphone?
Yeah, that should be a little better.
Perfect, thank you. All right. So now we have Tetsu. What do you think of grouping?
Well, you guys know I love Embers Adrift. I really enjoy it, so I give it an F. An F for fun. For fun, darn it. No. But no, I really enjoyed it because it brought back the 6-player group size. I enjoyed, and I played a warden, which is like a DPS, and also a warlord, which is like a bard or a support class, and so. Um, I gave it an A minus simply because it had the good grouping. I mean, the amount of people. I felt like I needed people. So, I guess that what I was thinking of earlier is you need each other, but you don't necessarily complement each other. And the reason why I say that is because I'm being influenced by my old favorite coming back, rearing its my ex has reared its head, and I love it, which is Final Fantasy 11. But now I've played the top tier, the pinnacle of this style of MMO. So because I played that, now I see what it truly can be. And so Embers Adrift, great and all, but it, like I said, you don't complement each other. You fill your role, it's needed, but you don't actually help anyone else. Like with my warlord, I just buffed everybody. Great, but like that's just what I do. Like it's not like, oh man, we need that warlord in the group. Now with the warden, I did feel a little more needed, that I did complement the group because I was pulling, and I was pulling quickly. But that's just more, I guess I generally do that. Not everybody. No, you don't really need a warden to do that. You need a Tetsu to do that. So
Looking for Tetsu.
so yeah, I give it an A minus simply because it's got the group size. You need each other. No automatic duty finders. You had to talk to each other. Had all the greatness of it. It's just there was no real like need for one specific person. Um, it could be, you could have picked anyone of that class. And again, was necessary, but you didn't complement one another. If that makes sense.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a big problem for me too, for sure. Desryn, what'd you think? Grouping, rating.
All right. So I want to start out on a positive here. So I'm glad this category was first. It really does have a classic feel. That was a really good start. It feels old school. People have already talked about the strong roles. There are strong roles within a party, the tank, healer, and DPS. Like it really feels that way. You don't feel like tanks are DPS and, everyone's DPS, everyone's heal, that kind of a thing. So that really makes grouping a lot better. The mechanics are all there. Polling, resource management, aggro management. Yeah, it's all there. Um, and I wanted to point out that like a lot of content does feel risky. The group content, where especially like if you get to dungeons. Um, and so like I really enjoyed that part. And they even added some nice kind of extras like the directional attacks from weapons. That I just like kind of how everyone kind of forms up and like gets into position kind of a thing. And so that's a nice touch. Another thing that's like such a minor thing that I really appreciated was by default, at launch, they had hotkeys for assist your defensive target and assist your offensive target. And they had offensive and defensive targets in the first place, which is I'm a huge fan of that system. But that was a really nice little quality of life thing that I think makes grouping a lot better, because you can have an assist. Having said all that, it can get a little bit monotonous, mainly because mobs don't really do anything like interesting. They they have some distinct mob types, like the bear is a good example, right? It does the big AoE stun that lasts like 3 minutes or so. But
It feels like 3 minutes.
Around there.
But other than that, it's like it's not very interactive, right? It's just like a mob might have a one thing that they do, and that's kind of it. I never felt like, oh, I'm watching out for when it does this thing, because there wasn't really like interrupts, right? Like it was just kind of, they just kind of attack, and you take damage. It's like pretty consistent. And really the only time that it's challenging is when your group does something wrong. And in that sense you gotta make your own fun, but yeah, and there, as someone already pointed out, there isn't really rating, so can't really grade that, but I still gave it a B+. It was a good portion of what I'd expect from a classically spirited MMO, and some good high points.
Yes. So I gave it an A. It has the correct size of a group, which is 6. That's huge. Therek said it, but I'm going to repeat it.
I knew I was stealing your thunder there too. I knew you were going to say that.
Listen, four-person MMOs are a co-op, not an MMO. Spread the word to everyone that you know. Thus saith the Draq. So 6 is great. I love 6. I just felt like the grouping was fun. I didn't put the things I'm going to bang on Embers Adrift for, I didn't put here. I thought the grouping was fun. I thought it was needed. I don't mind that, like Stan says, that they artificially make it needed. Like, I need to be pushed in a direction. I have to be pushed to group. Otherwise, I'll find ways to get around it. So that part never bothered me. The only piece, like maybe it didn't get an A+, is the problem with one of the drawbacks, and it's just like open world games, right? One of the drawbacks with group-centered games is if you don't have the population to support a whole bunch of people grouping, then you're in trouble. Also, the way that Embers works, where you start out with a class and then you split into 3 different classes, you don't have super distinct classes like Tetsu was talking before. So there's no real reason to, you could make like a healer ult and a tank ult, but you don't have like 18 different classes that are totally different. And so, I want to re-roll that, and I'm going to go back over and start over again. So if you were to start today and look for a group, like it's going to be rough going for you, because almost everybody is, in that 15 to 25 level, and that just really hurts group-centered games, and so that's why it gets an A instead of an A+. All right, so grouping gone. Now we're up for questing and crafting. So there, questing and crafting.
Did you add crafting to this category? I only had questing before.
I snuck it in there.
We are doing some crafting grading on the fly then.
I think that just says a lot about how important Draq thinks these categories are.
it's like keep us on our toes, right? Okay. So questing. Here's the thing. I gave it a B-, but that's not the crafting grade. So hold on a second. I'll add crafting into my final grade. But I want to say about the questing. I love that it's simple. I love that it's straightforward. It's easy. It's just very organic. There's no UI clutter. There's no little list tracker in the corner that keeps track of what you're doing. There's no exclamation points over the NPC heads. I think we all love that. You actually do have to read the text in some of them to get some hints about where they're going. For one of the 201 streams, we did the full quest of getting your Ember Stone. And if you hadn't read the text, I don't think you would have really known where to look. I mean, I was sort of guiding everybody through it a little bit. I have to say the rewards from some of the quests was great. We got better gear from some of those quest rewards than we did some from drops. And I think that's important in some cases, not all the time, but in some cases. The one thing I would say about the questing, I found that I was looking for more variety in terms of the quests and more of an epic feel to some of them. They felt a little samey and mundane, but we didn't get that far. I mean, we got to level 16 and we didn't go to the big stuff, I guess, but maybe there are those that it didn't feel like the scale was right. With regard to crafting, I loved the crafting. It's super simple. It's not involved in any way, shape, or form, but you do have to utilize other people. I like that. Especially the provisioner. I think, you needed every other person, every other class archetype to get your stuff, or crafting archetype. So that's good. I actually did some good crafting. I enjoyed it. I made myself some good gear, and I didn't. And having the marketplace was fun, and that's part of crafting, is selling your stuff to other people. And so I enjoyed it. So if I take the crafting into account, my B-, what was the change? I'll bump it up just a B instead of a B- with the crafting involved. I know it's simple. I know it's easy and peasy and not like detailed. Like it's nothing like I think what we've come to expect in other MMOs, but simple needs.
Stans is about to break the calculus down on this crafting. It's about to get ugly. Stans, questing and crafting. Oh, by the way, chat, it's Dark Myrrh and Quanos, okay? End of story.
There's no W, Draq. Quanos.
Quanos.
Voice acting, I'm just saying. I think that settled the debate.
Look, you chased Bounty out of chat. You see what you just did, Draq?
He's a dirty P99er.
You're gonna have to teach that trick to Sparoh.
Yeah. So crafting for me was a mixed bag. Like Therek said, there's some really good stuff you can craft when you get into the ability to craft and use your basically augmented materials to make the upgraded versions of things. The process of leveling, crafting, and just typically pumping out a bunch of Therek knows exactly, because I know he was another big crafter in the game, is you pump out a bunch of stuff that nobody wants due to something we're going to talk about later, or probably nobody wants more than maybe one piece of stuff. So you end up in that cycle of harvesting materials, crafting an entire backpack full of whatever it is you can get the most points for the least materials, then breaking them all down and selling the resulting broken materials back to the merchant ad nauseum.
This is where arrows and bolts come in very handy, because you can craft in bulk and you can actually use them.
And unfortunately, in the profession that I was doing, there was not a good equivalent. Yeah. So crafting was a very much a mixed bag, in that the kind of augmented crafting material stuff was really good, but everything you had to do to get there was just largely drudgery, and it wasn't either usable or sellable to a large degree. It was just craft and break. Because by about 3 days in, everybody either had a crafter or had gear that made it so that your crafted gear did not compare to anything they could wear and use. Questing, like Therek said, was very kind of under the surface, in that there's not a lot of, hey, this is your quest NPC, or this is the person who's going to go send you to do stuff. You had to go talk to NPCs and find who needed you to do things. And that's a good and a bad thing. It kind of, by the time you were doing it to any great extent, it felt like you were doing the NPC equivalent of pixel hunting in an adventure game. Yeah. And all right, cool. Let me find every NPC in the town. Let me see. Nope, you're just going to say hello. Nope, you're just going to try and sell me something. Nope, you're going to have the same line of dialogue that your buddy over there just had. There are pluses and minuses to this system, and it started to wear thin the more that I NPC hunted quests and tasks. Draq, you're wearing off on me.
Are you kidding me? I was doing that when I was turning quests in. I was like, is it this guy? No. Is it this guy? No. Is it this guy?
Draq, that is exactly the last point that I had, which is the quest journal has no history of notes of the things that led you from place to place. So at the end, it will say, okay, cool, I did the thing. Now I should go back to NPC name here. All right, cool. It's been a month since I started this, because I'm playing different characters and different... Who the hell is this?
And where? What zone? I have no idea.
Yeah, so that was unfortunate, especially because I spend a lot of time playing a game where I can click on the entire history of a quest and see the entire thing as if my character was taking notes. So overall, I gave this a C+. There's a lot of potential in both of these sections, but the repetition just kind of drags it down over time. I was much more positive on it at first than I ended up being at the end.
You stole my whole point. Sparoh.
Yeah, a lot of what I was going to say about the journal and just the randomness it feels like of who am I supposed to talk to hand this in? Like he said, it's been a month. I don't remember who this person was. So I ended up with a journal full of quests that I was like, I don't even remember where that is. So my point was there's no hand-holding really in this game at all. The quests are pretty cool when you know somebody who's already done the quest, like Therek or Stans, and they're just telling you, okay, you got to go here, you got to talk to this person, and you get a pretty cool reward from some of the quests. So my preference would be to have more guidance, both with the crafting and the questing. Because with the crafting, they kind of ask you to make this item, and then you're not really sure who to talk to later on when you get higher levels, what came next. And again, people would just end up telling you either in live chat or somebody you knew who knew. You very much had to read the quest to know anything that was going on, which is good. But as Stans was pointing out, there's no real markers of what you may have done or where you ended and what you have to do next. The crafting seemed pretty basic. There are items to craft that need other harvesting spheres. I'd prefer less of that, and that's just a personal thing. I know people who like being really reliant on other people. But when the population's a bit lower, I find that more irritating than anything else, especially when there's no auction house or anything like that. I'm one of those folks. I didn't do East Common tunnels or bartering or selling or anything. I like myself a good auction house to sell my useless crap on. So I'd prefer less of that and more items to craft with my main gathering profession. I went provisioner, I think it was called. I kind of wanted a little more options with the meats, and I think it was there was peppers and onions and turnips that dropped, and they were just vendor fodder. You didn't even make anything for them. So I was
Thank
kind of
you.
hoping, yeah, sorry if I stole your point, but yeah, it just seemed weird that I was hitting need on these because hey, I'm a provisioner, and people are like, why are you needing on that?
Same.
That's just vendor fodder, right? So my overall grade for questing and crafting together was a B+. It was fun to do, but there still needs to be some tweaking done to make it more efficient and usable, maybe.
Cool. Cryptfox.
All right, so for me,
And
I think
Cryptfox likes to craft. You're a crafter, right?
yeah, I do like to craft, but I didn't really care about crafting in Embers, and it was mostly because I didn't really care for how the gear looked. That and once I got my class, I didn't feel like my class. The gear didn't like make me feel like I was my class. Um, I saw the gear that was dropping from questing and dungeons and stuff. I was like, okay, so that's what the gear looks like at this level. I don't feel like crafting. I don't want to dump time into something if I don't like how the gear looks. So, uh, yeah, I didn't do the crafting, the questing. I read 200 pages a week as a grad student. I don't want to read 5-6 paragraphs for one quest. Keep it to one paragraph. I'll think about it. Yeah, most people read on 8th grade level, so if you take that dynamic and also think about people coming home from work and how much time they want to spend reading, then you might get in the ballpark of how long you want your quest to be. I don't know. I didn't like how much reading I had to do. I gave it a D.
Mujjin, crafting and questing.
I did not like the questing or crafting really all that much. Questing, none of the questing really pulled me in. I started off reading like the first couple and was like, it's no lore, nothing pulling me in. Now I'm just gonna click and I'll read like the text that says what options I got, but basically it'd be just click, 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 done. And then, of course, I'd have to go back into the history and find out where I exactly had to go and figure out what to do there. But didn't like it. So for questing, I gave it a D, and crafting was so unbelievably average. It was boring. I didn't like it. I would say that's also a D. So both are getting D's from me.
Yeah. Our two people that like crafting were not fans of the crafting.
Yeah,
Nathan.
that's telling.
Yeah,
Nathan.
that's
Alright.
fair. That's fair.
Now for me, who doesn't like crafting.
He loved
So,
it.
I'm gonna start with the questing first. All right. So I really love quest design where it gives you directions. Right. You have to think about it. You have to memorize it or write it down, and you're scared because you're like, if I don't forget, like you got to turn left at the fork, and I love that. That's why I prefer playing Morrowind over playing Skyrim, because in Morrowind, like, they just gave you a quest and it was an adventure. You weren't handheld. It was an adventure. You were scared. You're out there in the world. You don't know if you're in the right spot. You don't know, just like in real life, right? When my wife sends me to go find her purse, I don't know where her purse is. I have no idea, right? And the things you guys don't like, I do like. Like, for example, if I forget that quest, okay, I forgot it. So I guess I didn't finish that quest. That's on me, right? Like, I forgot about it. Just like I forget about I was supposed to go get my wife's purse because I was distracted by a video game, right? Like,
You don't go back to the quest giver and
don't
say,
go
what was my
back to
quest
the-
again?
Yeah, exactly.
So
So
you don't also end up at the park down the street looking for the purse.
That's what I was kind of getting at with like shorter text. Make it seem like an adventure. Go here. There's somebody that needs your help. Hurry.
Yeah, and I like that. I like to just be told, like, this is what we want you to do. Now go figure it out, right? And if you can't figure it out, reach out to the community, say, hey, I can't figure this out. I think I'm in the right spot. Other people will help you. And then by the time you finished it, it actually feels like you did something. You're actually proud that you finished this quest. Like when you go get the stone for the teleportation, that was super cool, man. When I got that stone, I was really proud that I got it because I actually went out and found it, right? Like I went on an adventure for that quest, and I'll never forget that, right? I'll never forget where that stone is, and me going and trying to find it, etc. And that's cool. That's way better than like, here's a quest, here's where you go, here's what you do, go do it, follow the GPS. That is lame. I'm not going to remember any of those. Not going to remember any of those. No
Step
memory.
A,
there.
B, C, D, E.
So I'm all about that life. Loved it. Now, crafting, I don't like to craft ever. Okay, ever. Never, ever, ever do I like to craft. But I'm going to give crafting a good score because everybody made cool stuff for me, and I like crafting in the game because I know it came from a person and they gave it to me or sold it to me, and that feels good. So I like crafting for that. I'm not ever going to do it, but I like that other people do it, right? And I like being able to gather things or materials that I can give to my friends that are crafters to help them, right? That gives me a sense of satisfaction. It has all that, and it's just a classic old school MMO crafting, right? Pretty basic from what I understand, which I'm cool with. I don't like reinventing the wheel. I feel like everybody's trying to reinvent the wheel way too often. I don't like it. If it's fun, if people like it, they like it, leave it alone, right? Like combat in MMOs. We don't need your action combat. We don't need your stupid ideas. Just give us good old tab target with some cool abilities. Period. End of story, right? So I give it an A+. I'm totally satisfied.
Hey Nathan, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
When you're on the quest for the magic purse and you actually find it, do you hold it over your head like Link and play that song?
Sort of, yeah. And by the way, when I find my wife's purse, I'm very proud of that too. That's also very proud of that quest as well.
That's a quest item.
Yeah.
Tetsu, questing and crafting.
I feel I have like a little bit of both Nathan's perspective on it and like also Sparoh's and a little bit of Crypt's. So like, so for me, it's gonna end up being right near the middle because I don't like to be handheld and like go get 5 boar butts in the northern forest, in right below the rock. Once you reach this, right, and like, well, that's just brain dead stupid, much less an indicator or marker. I like it scaled back a little bit. I like them to say, go find this boar up north. Okay, it's pretty general. I still have to work for it. My problem with, and Embers did that, right? They were just like, go over here to the east and kill and kill the bear. I don't know exactly which bear is. I've just found it, so that was great. And other people were helping me. My biggest complaint was the lack of some type of quest log, because I don't remember what was happening. Like, I had a quest there that was like a level 1 quest, and I never finished it because I didn't know. I'm like, what happened to that? It's been so long, I have no idea. So I want it to be a very vague quest, but I need it to stay there because I need to go back to it. I need that information to be useful, because if it's gone, it almost reminded me of certain games where, like old Final Fantasies, where you missed an area, like an item, and you moved on to disc 4, and that's it. You're screwed. You're never getting that item. I'd be so pissed. The completionist in me would be enraged. I would quit games at times like that. So it kind of reminds me of that. I'm like, okay, you don't make it easy, but just don't completely lock me out from it, because I'm never gonna remember this. So I give it. The quests themselves are fine. It was just getting, and I like the rewards. It wasn't like a ton of XP or any XP really. It was just a piece of gear, which was great. So I like the rewards. I like everything. Just give me something to go back to. That's all I ask. So I'm gonna give it a I'll give it a B minus. Oh wait, crafting. I don't do that. C plus. There you go.
B plus. Perfect. Desryn. Crafting, questing.
Okay, well, we'll start with questing, and we'll just kind of group the grades, I guess, here. So one thing I did love about the questing that you guys already kind of touched on was that you actually had to figure it out, or ask, whenever you get to a certain step that it's like, oh man, I don't actually know where this is. It was really nice, and I actually found myself asking in OOC or whatever a lot, zone chat I mean, and that was really nice. I also really like when the quest just asks you to do something and give you a general direction. I think one of the early ones is like, you'll find this guy in a tower to the east, and so you go to the east and eventually you see a tower and you're like, oh, that's probably where that guy is. So that is great. As everyone else pointed out, the lack of the log is really what makes it terrible, for me, because all I want is a track of the dialogue. I don't need it to like interpret, into a concise amount of steps or anything so that I don't have to read the dialogue. I just want the dialogue there as my kind of digital memory, because I also will forget things, especially in an MMO where there's just a lot of things happening, right? I think the amount of quests was really nice. Not too many quests, but also, like, generally speaking, there was something to do, at least in the game time I had. But yeah, just keeping track of dialogue would have been a huge thing. The rewards, which Tetsu just noted there, the lack of XP. Yes, I don't need more XP for the last step of a quest. I really appreciate that the quests were not the main way of advancement, but instead it was the rewards. Especially early on, the rewards for the quests were made the quest totally worth doing, because you don't get a lot of good drops from solo stuff at least, and so I thought that was really worth. So like the questing in general, I generally like, as you guys pointed out, the map, doesn't have icons to run to. It was just a very like organic experience. The one thing I want to note here, which is kind of like in between this and the lore section, with the writing of the quests, which I wouldn't say was stellar by any means, but one thing I really appreciated was that the NPCs did seem to have their own perspectives. It wasn't a universal perspective. It was, this is the opinion of this person, versus just a more bland, universal everyone has a hive mind kind of a thing. It's a small detail in the dialogue, but something that I can't help but say was really great. Crafting, yeah, it was really basic. One really cool thing I did love that somehow no one else pointed out yet, so I'm really glad going next to last that I would have something new to say. The second and third professions that you could get. I loved that you would level your first profession, and then you could choose a second one to start, and then you get both of those professions to another level, and then you can pick up a third one. That felt really good to me. And I actually liked that they combined crafting and harvesting because it gave you a choice. Do I want to be self-sufficient? Well, except for if you're a provisioner, which is, of course, what I chose. But, it gives you the option to be more self-sufficient by harvesting your own stuff. Or maybe it gives you a lot of options. Like you could pick 3 crafting professions and only source your materials from other people. Or you could do all 3 harvesting professions to be like Draq, who just likes harvesting things. Like you could do that. And I really thought that was a great approach. So that brought my overall grade up a bit, but the questing and crafting together still got a B- for me, just because there was still just a lot missing. And crafting, there was really no variability in the crafting. Dan's pointed out that it's the whole you craft a billion things, that kind of stuff detracted. But yeah, questing and crafting, if I had to average the 2 out, I'd say a B- experience for me.
Very cool. All right, questing. Oh my goodness. If Bounty Code's still in chat, I repeat, I am not going to sit there with a piece of paper beside my PC and write down friggin' quests. It's never happening. Next game. Okay? It's not happening. Second, you can't even go back to the original quest giver and get the quest details. I don't know if you guys tried this, but I did. I went back to the quest giver. What you have to do to get the quest information again is you actually have to drop the quest and get it again, which is just ridiculous. Come on, help us out. The details have to be in the quest journal. You shouldn't have to make me go all the way back to the quest giver, drop the quest, and get it again. That is ridiculous. Crafting, I can't believe nobody brought this up. And maybe I just completely missed the boat on crafting and I have no idea. That is totally possible. So someone correct me if I'm completely wrong. But it kind of seems to me like crafting was boiled down to the one item. And I don't even remember what the one item was that everybody wanted. What is it?
Flux.
So crafting to me basically is it's all boiled down to flux. So you get the flux and that's all that matters because that makes a good item. Everything else is plentiful and it doesn't matter. Is that wrong? Because that's kind of how it seemed to me.
That's pretty much it. But I mean, I have to say, this is an opportunity for you to corner the market on flux. Where are you complaining?
There's no auction house.
Flux is harder to get. Draq, he just wants eggs.
So there's no auction house. There's no it didn't do it for me. The crafting, I'm not a big crafter anyway. And the questing, oh dude, it's brutal. So it got a D for me. Not a good score.
Needing an economy.
Yeah. All right, so we are on.
Draq, I wonder if you'd have went to one of those fairs because they hold
right
on Saturdays. They hold a fair with the developers, gather everybody and they sell the stuff. I wonder how you would have felt if you'd experienced.
Here's the deal, though: the game's got to suck me in more than what it did to get me to one of those. Okay. Right? If I'm going to take a Saturday morning out of my thing and go to then I already have to be super invested in the game. And I just wasn't, right? And I'll get to this later. I really, really, really wanted to like it, but I just didn't. And so I just those types of things aren't going to suck me in. All right, class spells and skills. This one's going to be spicy.
Oh boy.
Yeah. This is a tough one.
Okay, well, I'll speak to the classes that I played. I played a Warden to level 15 and a Marshal to level 10. So let's start with the Warden. I really, really liked the Warden class. It felt like a Ranger that I wanted it to be. I have to say, the aggro management tools, I mean, there's really one, maybe two that you get. They work well. I was always able to sort of, use it to divert the aggro to the tank. I found that the lull ability that I got later on, I think it was level 13 or 14 that you get at the sedation dart worked really well. Opened up some tricky pulling situations that we weren't able to do before, or at least make them a little bit more manageable. What's funny is we talked about the healing, being really bad for the healer classes, but the Warden gets the healing skill at level one of the teen levels. And it wasn't really that useful for the Warden but the way it works, it doesn't use the bandages or the massages that the healing classes actually use. It's actually more of a healing spell than anything else, which is hilarious because it would have been so much more useful for the healing classes. So that's actually, a bit of a knock on the class design, I guess. Yeah, bows are awesome. I love my Warden and my bow, choosing the big damage with the long bows or the short bow, and the constant at any range kind of damage makes it really fun. I liked the Warden class quite a bit. Now the Marshal, I didn't play it as much, but I enjoyed the AoE crowd control aspect of it. I thought it worked. It did the job it was supposed to do. You had to basically, use it, and then everybody had to back off because it's just a movement, a stop rather than any kind of a stun. So it was good, but it wasn't enough, or it wasn't quite as good as it could have been. In terms of tankiness, the Warden was okay. It wasn't the best tank. I think like this class needed a little bit more to be built out a little bit more to feel a little bit more complete. But I also enjoyed it. Bad points for maybe both of the classes. We talked about this on stream. The Lay of the Land spell for the Warden is supposed to be a pretty big. I was expecting it to be a big deal where I'd give my group mates Spirit of the Wolf. It was not. It needs a little more juice to the speed buff.
Was jogging of the wolf.
the spirited trot.
Spirit of jogging.
Yep. And of course, there's no spells. Like, even though my healing skill was closer to a spell than what the healers got it, there's still no spells. So that's a knock. But I liked the class design. I liked overall the classes I played. I didn't have a bad experience. I know Draq, you did for yours, but I'm giving it an A-. I thought that it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I enjoyed it.
All right, Sans, give us the math. Tell us what it really is.
So I played 3 classes. Like I said, I played a Berserker, I played a Sentinel, and I played a Juggernaut. And in order, those are variably no, maybe, and yes. Draq, I'm going to leave Berserker to you.
Thank you.
Knock yourself out.
I got some things to say.
Yep. Sentinel was weird. Sentinel, aside from the general support toolkit, I have a heal over time, I have an offensive hit rating debuff, and I have a self-defensive debuff. So it's a really weird mishmash of support skills. I don't know if they want me to be tanking, debuffing the mob, or supplemental healing. It's a really interesting mix. If I could just grade this on the Juggernaut, I would give this a solid A, because I absolutely adore the Juggernaut in this. That is what I want out of a DPS tank class. It is every skill that I was given was part of my normal active, I don't want to say rotation, but it was part of my normal usage. Everything was good. There were no duds. I can't say that about anything else I played. So that dragged this grade up to a B-. And Draq, because I know your thoughts about the Berserker, that should tell you how much I like the Juggernaut.
I played the wrong class again. It's a theme. Sparoh, class, spells, skills.
I played a duelist, which is one of the healers. I like that you're given your abilities when you hit your appropriate level. There's no hunting for some mysterious person who has your spells, or not spells, I guess, abilities. I like that you can see what skills you're going to get. and at what level. So when you open up your menu, you can see your class, what level you are in it, and the spells you're going to get. I like that. I like knowing what's coming up because you also can see how you're going to play your character as you go on. You have things to look forward to. I don't mind that there isn't an official magic system. At first, it really bothered me when we first started playing. But since there's still skills and I still had healing and different abilities, it pretty much played the same way, even if we're not calling it magic per se. The negative was the healing class was annoying. So the duelist, especially having the crossbow, so I'd have to get further back because you can't be up close at all and use the crossbow. But then I'm not close enough to heal at all because you have to be right up to the person because the area radius of the heals is way too small. Especially when the mob's moving around. Because a lot of times the mobs would do these weird like backup, run in a circle, come back. I don't know if it was trying to counter things or what it was doing, but then all of a sudden the people you're trying to heal are running out of this little tiny range that's right in front of you. They can't even move to your more peripheral, or else they're out of range. So that part was annoying. It lost grades there. I felt needed in the group as a healer, so that was a plus. I felt like I could solo one Chevron mobs by myself, so I could do some soloing as a duelist, but I felt needed in a group, and it was a lot more fun to group, I think. So overall, I gave it a B-. Class, spells, and skills.
All right, Cryptfox, what do you think?
Well, class spells and skills. I don't know. I didn't really enjoy playing the Marshal. The impression that I got of it was that it was like a crowd control tank. I didn't feel like that. I felt like because there was like two tanks in the party that I was kind of like extra. Uh, like having two tanks in a party,
You're the little brother tank.
yeah, it's like, why am I playing a tank? Because like the aggro was really annoying, like things moving out of your ability view. If you moved in the wrong way, it broke. Because like when you're playing a tank, you're voluntarily sacrificing damage output for control. So if I can't gain control of aggro or I can't communicate with the other tank in the group, because like we have multiple people in comms, I want to be able to see something visually on the screen that's going to show me, okay, the other tank has the aggro and be able to have that snap vision to be able to do that. The abilities for the Marshal, I didn't feel like they made a difference. Sure, I can pop the AoE aggro, but the aggro in the game, I feel is kind of weak. It's direction based instead of target based. The abilities that are supposed to like snap aggro, the one that uses like the bear P, it's not guaranteed. Um, it's just really hard to like keep aggro sometimes when there's multiple enemies, and sometimes you can't control having those multiple enemies. We have like the stun or the mez, but it's not readily available all the time, is it? I don't know. But I gave classes and spells and skills a D. I just didn't. I wasn't feeling it. I was really excited to play the Marshal because I wanted to play as like the picture suggested, like a Spartan. The gear didn't match up to the aesthetic. The abilities, felt lackluster. The aggro was kind of weak. Uh, I got a bunch of really high armor class gear, so I was taking a lot less damage, but I couldn't hold aggro. I was roughly within a few levels of everybody. I don't know. I just didn't have a great experience playing it.
Mujjin, class, spells, skills.
I played. What was it, like 4 classes? My first guy, I ended up basically going through all the striker classes, trying to find one that matched because, well, at first they had the stamina cost on all the attacks way too high. So if you were soloing as a striker, you were sitting pretty much after every freaking fight. And that took the fun factor way, way, way down. I didn't like that. They eventually corrected that, but it was way too late. I've already decided that I didn't like the game because it wasn't working. And then the class I ultimately stayed with for the grouping was the Brigand because I did like some of the CC ability, but having to actually walk over to it to smack it, hopefully it landed. Most of the time it didn't. And then it didn't even give any kind of cool indication that it was out. What was the little Z's up there that everybody missed and somebody smacked it anyway? So made CC kind of pointless. Didn't really. And since there are no spells, yeah, I'm gonna have to give it my patented F+.
Patented F+.
The
Patent.
F+ makes an appearance.
Yeah.
It says
And-
Mujjin on the side of the F.
Yeah, and Mujjin makes a really good point in that there was some CC that could be had, but the problem is since everything ends up in a big clump of melee just due to core design, breaking CC is basically instantaneous and
Yeah.
almost unavoidable.
Yeah,
It's
it's
really
pretty
good
pretty brutal.
Yeah, especially with the martial AoE damage ability that's supposed to
Yeah.
do aggro. It's like if it's within range and we have like 4 enemies, one of them's Mez, tank has the other one, but I'm the only one with AoE. I have to like reposition the mobs so that my AoE doesn't catch the stunned one, which forces the healers to move, and the cluster just kind of like moves along. So
Yep. Nathan, class, spell, skills.
Yeah, so I played what might possibly be the 2 most fun classes in the game, right? I played the Knight, played the Juggernaut. They were both really fun to play, at least in my opinion. I had a ton of fun with both of them. I like the abilities. I was always looking forward to the next one coming up because you can kind of check and you can see what's coming. I did feel like I wish there was a little more because sometimes like level I might be getting a little mixed up with something like 14 to 18. Man, that's a long time to get from level 14 to 18, and that's like 40 hours maybe.
Mhm.
Maybe that's not true, but it's a long
close.
time. That would be my only gripe with that. Every time I got one, I was always satisfied with how it turned out. And the urine and every class had their own kind of ingredient they could use to make certain abilities more potent. Really loved that. And it didn't make them so potent that it blew it out of the water or anything. It was just a little bit, but it was enough for you to notice. And I really, really liked that because it would make me in between grouping. If I'm soloing, the experience is pretty bad. However, I'm also fighting mobs that are getting me urine that I need, right? That I know that when I'm back in a group, I'll have a big stockpile of that. So it made all forms of gameplay, in my opinion, better. So I really did enjoy both the classes I played. I just think tanking, at least with those 2 classes, is so much fun. However, I always play a class that has some sort of magic, right? I like to tank, but I like to pick a tank that has a little magic, even if it makes me not as good of a tank to get that ability. I will still pick it. I play a Thane in Dark Age Camelot, play a Paladin every other game in the world. I'm not forced to be a Midgard, and so I can't do that with this game because there is no spells. And I think that is the largest problem with this category. It's just really difficult to tell somebody you're going to like this MMO and then immediately say there's no spells, right? Like people are just like think you're an idiot if you say that in the same sentence, right? So that's its major knock for me. So I gave it a B-.
B-. Tetsu.
I think the sorry, positive. The positive is that it had abilities that did matter in the group, like as a warden, like there was saying, I had that kind of stun that I had to do before I pulled aggro, so like that was fun and it helped me pull quite a bit. And then as a warlord, I had a stamina regen and an MP regen, which made me feel like, okay, I'm special in this group, so that was cool. So they had the right abilities. The detractor was one, the animations. I mean, when I did my, like, when I'm singing, like, you can't tell that I'm singing as a warlord or whatever. When someone's stunned, you can't really tell. There's no indicators. A lack of indicators with the spells, and a lack of, like, and I know it's a budget game and so on and so forth. So I get that's why it is, but nonetheless, it is what it is. I don't really know what's happening. Everyone's just swinging their weapons, maybe throwing their arms out every once in a while, and maybe they're singing, maybe they're mezzing. Who knows what they're doing? But and then when it comes to class spells and skills, I'm going to talk about the mob skills. They didn't really do anything where I felt like I needed to react to that. There was no, like, the mob did a defense buff, so I needed to debuff it or whatever. I wasn't really interacting with the mob. I was just doing my thing, and regardless of what the mob did, other than I will give them that sometimes they had, like, they'd run away. That was kind of cool. But for the most part, I really didn't feel like I had to really react to the mob. My skills, I just kind of did my rotation, sort of, kind of reactive rotation, not a real rotation. And I mean, it was great, but I just couldn't tell what was happening a lot of times. So that being said, but again, they were core abilities, buffs as a warlord, mezzes and longbow, so I can pull as a warden. And then some abilities were kind of lackluster, like, the jog of the wolf, that that really wasn't very exciting when I got it, or like my bottle of, like, Neosporin I had for my healing ability, which did nothing to anyone at any time. Maybe so, like, that was useless. So, like, really, the few that were there, cool, but I can't tell that they're happening, and the other ones were kind of useless. So I'm gonna give it a plain old C. I mean, you did what you're supposed to do, but you can definitely work on it, and not to mention maybe complement other classes better, and have some reactive abilities or something like that. So just plain old C.
Des, classes, spells, and skills.
All right, here we go.
Yes.
Bring it, Des.
Let's go.
So I also had 3 characters. Actually, I guess technically I had 4, because one of them I re-rolled, as in, like, I redid the class because if you didn't know, you can start over on a character if you'd like without actually re-rolling the character, which is kind of interesting, actually. And I did that for one of my healers. So of my classes, I went Sentinel, Duelist, and Juggernaut. And I mean, I'm happy to say that between the roles, so, healer versus tank, or tank versus DPS, like, they feel pretty different, like, they're distinct, and so that's a huge plus. But after that, when, while, like, we have all these, the 3 individual subclasses from each, they're, like, technically different. I feel, yeah, the class identity was just non-existent for me. The classes just feel so boring. Like, I think it's so funny that a few people have mentioned Juggernaut, because that was the best one. And I was starting to enjoy that for sure. But I think the problem is just the skills. I mean, not the problem, but one of the big problems. I was not excited to get any of my abilities on any character after I had leveled up just a bit to see, what the future brings. There were so few abilities. Like, I mean, when we first started playing, they only had abilities up to, like, level 30 as well. I'm not knocking it for that anymore, but still, like, there's just so few abilities. You get them so sparsely as well. And so yeah, and the other thing was some abilities are like so redundant too. So I think it was like level 10 when I got a new ability called I can't remember what it's called, but it's like it did the same thing as like one of my abilities from like level 6 or level 8 or something like that. And I was just like, I'll increase your armor, and then I'll increase it again. Like it just was not exciting. And I think one of the other big detractors for me because the Sentinel was kind of my main, I guess you would say. So sorry, I'm collecting thoughts here. So I don't know how to phrase this, but with debuffs are a really hard thing to pull off because they can't be so powerful that you have to use them all the time. But if they're if they're too powerful, it kind of breaks the game. But the problem is the only times I wanted to use my debuff was when we're fighting really difficult mobs. But when we're fighting really difficult mobs, the debuff never lands. So it made it completely pointless. And not to mention, 2 of your spells on your bar until, probably level 20 something, they're just always on your bar and they're like the same abilities that everyone gets. And it's just like, I really only could use like 2 or 3 abilities consistently. And that just made it just super boring. And that was specifically the Sentinel, but the Duelist was kind of like, oh, that's kind of my solo healer. But I didn't really think of it any different than that. It was just, it felt so uninspired, I guess, is the problem. I felt no sense of identity or connection to my class. I just kind of felt like a vague healer.
You look like everybody else.
Exactly. In a sense. I mean, like I said, I got to give some points for the distinct roles, and playing a Jug felt different than playing Sentinel. But the only real plus I can give that keeps this from being a lower grade is the Regent system. I think that's super cool, especially because you have a limited amount of slots. I could imagine being higher level and having to choose which abilities I want to boost and use Regents on, because you could just, toggle it. And sometimes, hey, maybe you don't need to use Regents for, these easy mobs. So you just turn it off and your abilities are kind of nerfed, but like, it's a choice. I really did like that. But I think you kind of add that all up to like kind of the low fantasy setting where your abilities like don't even look cool. Like I can't even remember any effects or anything from my abilities. So there was just no satisfaction to any of it. And the healing issues with the line of sight and the range, and just it all made the class situation really unimpressive to me, even if there were a few nuggets that were kind of cool. So overall, I give it a C, just because the roles are distinct and I really like the Regent system. But other than that, man, that just felt like such a huge amount of blah for me.
Guys, I feel like you guys were really nice. Super nice.
Come on, Draq, tell us about the Berserker.
Are you kidding me right now? What the heck?
Be real, Draq.
Going into rage mode.
This thing.
Draq, why aren't you casting fireballs?
Listen, this thing starts at a C. It starts there. There's no magic in the game. None. How are you gonna do a D&D themed RPG game, MMO, with no magic? Whatever. Low fantasy setting is not actually a thing. You made that up.
I think they made it up.
It's not a thing.
The whole Middle Ages didn't exist.
No,
that's we gotta talk.
No, it's not good. No, it's horrible. So it started bad. It started at a C. And then we went down from the C. Why did we go down? Because all these classes are exactly the same. You have a tank, you have a healer, and you have DPS. That's all you got. And the classes, you could use any of the like different weapons. You could switch. My Berserker could wield a 2-handed axe or daggers or whatever. It didn't matter. You could wield all the stuff. It just was like, it was a mess. And Also, the Berserker. I mean, probably some of this is just the Berserker was just a horrible class. I'm like getting excited. It kind of plays like a rogue. A striker plays like a rogue. You get to level 10. Okay, now I'm a Berserker. Now I get my class defining ability. And what does that class defining ability do? It makes it so I swing my axe for 25 seconds and can't use any other ability. That's what it does. It just sits there and swings faster. So I'm just like, press the button, dink. Okay, I'm done now. I'll just kind of chill.
Go get some coffee.
Go get some coffee and hang out. It's absolutely awful. That's horrible game design. My special ability, my Berserker, who uses its Berserker skill, it shouldn't negate everything else that I want to do. It's horrible. So yeah, it was just bad. The healing's bad. The fact that as everyone has said, I think Tetsu said it too, Des said it, like the clumping, this game desperately needs ranged classes. Everything was in a clump. Everything was you couldn't tell what anything that was going on because everything was in a giant pile in the middle, and there was no way to manage it, right? And with no icons above the mobs, it was impossible to split mobs. So you ended up just kind of off tanking everything, and I didn't like it at all. So for me, it gets an F. And it was the major detraction from this game for me. And I really wanted to like this game, but I can't handle the classes. I don't think they were well done at all.
Kind of goes back to that aggro management. Like if you can like get that aggro, you can pull mobs apart. That way you can manage the fight.
Yeah. I don't know. Needs to be something different. It was not good. It's all right. So next, we would normally do PvP, but this is not a PvP game. We don't knock it for that because honestly, most of the crew is not PvP people.
That's so,
I give it an A+ for that.
Because it didn't have any.
Tetsu gives it a bump for no PvP. Yep. So we are now jumping to graphics and sound. We need to pick up the pace just a skosh because we're a little behind. So
okay, all right. Well, let's go then. I've got a good A- solid grade for the graphics and sound. I'll talk about the graphics first. I found them very immersive. The aesthetic is very close to what I'm looking for. It needs more fantasy, more color, but the lighting is amazing. Some of the shots in the forest that we had when there's coming through the trees. There was one night where we were playing in the fog and the sun or the moon was coming through the fog. Amazing. I love that. The music brings me back to earlier games. I said in the very first time we played it, I think that it had a real MIDI feel to it. It had a very strong nostalgia hit for me with the music, and I really loved it. Reminded me of Ultima 6, reminded me of Might and Magic games. The moods of the music was sometimes calming, sometimes very epic. I felt like there was just the right balance of not trying too hard to do too much. On the downside, I wish it ran and streamed better at higher settings. That's not really a graphics thing, more of an optimization. The character creation needs more from a graphical standpoint. Animations are hit and miss for sure. How that jumping sound is not fixed yet boggles my mind. Seems like a day one thing. Generally, some of the sound effects are lacking in other areas, harvesting mostly. So it's not perfect, but again, the music and I really I felt immersed, and the graphics brought me in and sucked me in, and I liked it. So it's an A- for me.
There's like, here's a problem. Here's a problem. Here's a problem. A-.
Yeah,
I'm very forgiving. I'm very forgiving.
Therek grades higher than a lot of us do.
Yeah, I'm looking at life
hand raised here.
Yeah. From an optimist's view.
Yeah. I think that they're doing a very good job with obviously limited resources where they're having to buy a lot of assets and asset packs. I think they're doing a good choice of picking what they pull in and use as far as bought assets and combining them. They seem to be doing a pretty good job sticking to the theme as well as adding their own assets. The problem for me really is that there's just not enough there yet, and there is no optimization done as of yet. And so for what the game looks, sounds, and feels like, fighting the camera, fighting the engine, fighting the controls, um, and again, a lot of that goes back to the graphics. The core of this really is, I'll push back on you, Therek, there a little bit. The optimization and graphics I'm absolutely putting together because that's what's driving this. I give this a C plus. It shows a lot of promise, but they just need to keep working on their polish and moving forward. It's a C plus with potential.
B plus plus. Sparoh. Sound graphics.
Overman.
Yeah, I really enjoy the music. I noticed with some of the dungeons, it had this nostalgic World of Warcraft orcish feel with the drums and everything. I thought some of the music is really well done. So that got a higher grade for me. The nature sounds when you're going through, or like on Raven Rock, you can hear, especially in your headphones, like the ravens from the different areas, and it just sounds so real. Um, the only sound, like I didn't find any combat sounds that were annoying, but that jump sounds, I definitely put that down. Like they need to get rid of those jumping sounds. We joked about it probably every every stream.
time, yeah.
Many times a lot of us stopped around just to look at the scenery and some of the things like Therek had pointed out, the moon coming through the mist or the sunrise coming through the trees. It really is beautiful a lot of times. So what did I gave that an A plus for just the sound and graphics. I loved it.
Yep.
Perfect. Cryptfox, sound and graphics.
Well, I gave it a B plus because I liked all the things that you guys are mentioning. But yeah, I'm gonna harp on the graphics of the armor again. I really did not like that at all. I would like when I think of like sound and graphics, I'm thinking of like an experience, like go into a game and just be like, ooh, ah. I get that when I look everywhere else except for at my character. Plain and simple. So I give it a B plus.
Nice. Mujjin.
Guess graphics were good unless you're like a streamer or you're trying to record it. So then you had to drop it down. I was not a fan of that. Everything looked fine, even dropping it down. So because he had to drop it down if you wanted to stream or record, I gave it a B.
Nathan.
Yeah, I mean the just like he said, I streamed this game a lot, and I would have to. It's because the optimization isn't there. That you can't run the game at very high settings, regardless if your computer can handle it or not. It's OBS that is struggling to make sense of the unoptimized thing it's trying to portray for the viewer. So it really doesn't matter what kind of monster machine you have with this game. You're just going to have to drop it to low if you're streaming at any kind of decent frame rate. So that hurt it the most. The animations, as we've talked about, need some major work. I think the ones that are there are good enough. I think everything in the game is good enough. It's not going to blow anybody's mind. There are moments in the game where, like the fog effects or the lighting, especially with torches in the dark in a cavern or something, and the shadowing is really good and will really set a really good mood for the gameplay. So I feel like it's for such a small team and the development time given, I'm very impressed. I think the sound and the music, that was, from what I was told, that's one guy making all that, and it's not store-bought. There may be some that I'm not aware of, but he designed some of these really epic pieces. We didn't get too far in the game, but I've gotten quite a bit further with my main character, and there is some drop-dead gorgeous music in this game that actually shocked me. So I think the music was great. I think the sound effects is serviceable. It's good enough. I could use with a little more, but I think where they're at right now, being so low fantasy, there's not as cool as sound effects because you don't have like crazy monster sounds because there's not a lot of monsters in the game. So I think it's serviceable, but they definitely have a long road to go as far as animation is concerned. And also, I couldn't help but I got to give them a little bit of a ding here too on the graphics because they're being way too picky about what enemies go in the game. They need more mobs. Don't care if it matches with your art style. Don't care about whatever you're worried about. I don't care. One of the major problems with this game is you need more graphics in the game. You need more mobs. So you can buy these freely available on the asset store, and I think they've already bought them. I think they're just tweaking them and trying to make them fit with the art style. Forget about that. Get the cool mobs in the game so people enjoy playing it.
How many times did we joke about we only kill bee mobs?
And bee mobs.
Yeah, exactly. And they're animal mobs.
Bears, boars, and bandits.
It's and bugs too. Don't forget bugs.
Bugs.
So yeah, I'm gonna have to give this one a C.
And bats.
And what the turtles were even bee? What were the turtles? They were
Baby
Box turtles.
Oh, and the
box
bunnies.
turtles.
Don't forget the bunnies.
the bunnies and the box turtles.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. It's just yikes. All right, Tetsu, graphics and sound.
Okay. The sounds I thought were pretty good. Nathan pointed out some there was a desert area, not the Meadowlands, but the next area to the east of North Reach. That was it. It was like a Middle Eastern type sound. It was great. I loved it. It was exciting when I got out there, and it was a desert area. So I think the music was really good. I loved how you could hear the echo when you were fighting inside caves and stuff like that. You could actually hear the echoes of the arrows going off and people fighting and whatnot. So I thought the sound was actually really good. And then the graphics I also thought were really good. I took a couple screenshots. The lighting was amazing. It was a little monotonous. I mean, I don't want to give the excuse, well, they're an indie dev, but it is what it is. So whatever the reason is, lack of manpower, money, whatever it is, the point, it was monotonous. But what they did have was really good. The only detractors was just kind of the samey, like everyone else was saying, same mobs, same deers, same area for the most part. Even though they did a good job with that desert, I've only seen 5 areas: the beginner area, the town, North Reach, Meadowlands, and then one other one, which is a desert area, and that was pretty cool. And there was a castle in there, which I think they opened up later on. So that was pretty cool. So it looked really good. The only detractors were, like Crip said, my characters. I was never really excited to put anything on other than my deer helmet. That was pretty cool. But there was never really anything that I was like, oh, this looks amazing. And I don't know if it loops back to earlier, but indicators, there was barely any indicators when things were happening. I think it was more, this belonged more in this category. It was when I'm playing a song, I want to see the instrument out. I want to see me singing, whatever it might be. When I'm not super into 30 million graphics on your screen. I get that. I know some people who don't like that, in Final Fantasy 14, that they hate I'm fine with it. I don't need that, but I need something other than just a plain old swing and maybe there were 3 animations or whatever. So I get why they were like that, but it is what it is. But what they did have, they stretched their dollar quite a bit. So I gave them a B+.
Yes, graphics and sound.
All right. So as you guys pointed out, the world looks pretty good. I would say they do have some great atmosphere. A lot of what they have is store assets, and I'm not going to fault them for that. I'm not going to grade lower because, again, small team. Having said that, nowadays, using store assets, it's really not that crazy to make something look fairly good. It is really hard to make it look good and run well. And because this has to do with graphics, I'm absolutely going to knock them for the terrible optimization of this game. it doesn't run nearly as well as it should for how it looks. Not like as a small example, the issue with the torches. You get another torch on screen, boom, 10 FPS, just see ya. You know, like that's just that needs to be solved. Animations, I think hit and miss is a great way to put that, so I'm not going to get into that anymore. The player models and gear I will hit on again because it's just not hitting right for me. You know, low fantasy, I get it. That's fine. But still, you know, it didn't look smooth. A lot of the game was it felt janky or kind of pieced together. Like some of the armor didn't even seem to like fit right. Like it didn't seem to go together. And while I would agree with Stan saying a lot of the assets work decently together, I think that's because it's a low fantasy setting, and it actually kind of makes me wonder, did this switch to low fantasy because it's easier to use store assets? Like, it really, like, I hate to think that way, but it almost feels like it, because maybe this wouldn't have gotten to release otherwise. And so, you know, again, small team, indie MMO, I can't fault them too much, but it as a player of this game, to pay money for it, it has to stand up to something, and there's just some lacking here. No field of view adjustment is actually something that really killed me. The camera by default, well, I mean, you can't change it, so it's, yeah, by default, is has a weird perspective to it that doesn't line up with other games. I would absolutely increase the field of view if I could, because I could see why Sarah got motion sickness. It feels like you're close even when you're far away. I don't know how to put that, but
And every time you walk through a tunnel, you spin around like 4 times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the collision, I've seen worse camera collision, but it was pretty rough in a lot of situations.
Yeah, in the dungeons was especially bad for that motion sickness feel. I got that whenever we went into dungeons.
Yeah, it's definitely something they should really try to work out. Now on the music sound side, the music was like all right. Maybe I didn't get to some of the better pieces, I guess. But it was kind of like decent, nothing crazy. I don't really remember much of it, like the other folks, which is kind of why I can't say it was very good. But maybe it does improve later on in the game. But that's something I feel like doesn't need to improve as the game goes on. Like you shouldn't need to get to an end game area to get good music. And so, you know, the first 3-4 zones, I don't remember really much about it. They do have some ambient sounds and stuff like that. Some little touches like reverb in the caves that I think it makes a huge difference. That every game should have, honestly. You know, what was mentioned? Was it in the chat? But the like kind of ravens in that particular area, they did have some like kind of point of sound, which is really nice. A bit of that was really nice. I appreciate it, but nothing really that went above and beyond that I would give a great grade for. And combine that with the like bad optimization and some more graphical issues like the field of view, I'll give this a B, solely because it's a small team and there's only so much you can do. But it took a lot for me to give it a B, I gotta say.
I have to say, I'm shocked that you didn't like the low, bassy monks singing in all the dungeons, like all the low, that whole.
You know, I
that
like
was
that
so epic
occasionally.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
why is that the sound in the dungeons though? And the biggest thing I'm going to say comes later. But
Okay.
that has to do with it. Perfect.
Got to keep this moving. I'm also going to give it a B. I thought the music was good. I thought the graphics were eh. The character models, as people said, were really eh. The walk, it also seemed like, to me, and I'm not sure if this is where to stick this, but it seemed like everything was a touch slow. Like the attack animations were a touch slow. My walking speed was definitely a touch slow. Like everything just moved at like just like this, just a little bit too slow, and that really bothered me. And like it fell off, and I don't know why, but I want to make sure to mention that we got to keep this train rolling. So quickly, cash shop monetization, because I don't think this is going to be the big enchilada. Therek.
No, this is easy. It's an A triple plus. It's exactly how it should be. Buy the game, pay the sub, done. No nonsense. I'm out.
Stance.
For me, I want to agree with Therek. The problem is at this point in the game, with what we have, I cannot feel good about the box price and sub with the game as it stands now. I gave it a C+, and that is a grade that would have been steadily going up over our time playing as they have made the game better and better in the time we've played. It's still tough to defend at this price point, at this point in the game's development.
Sparoh, cash shop monetization.
It's a perfect old school model. You purchase the game, you pay a monthly sub, and the content is continuing to be implemented and upgraded. So if it was just that, it would get a higher grade. But as Stans pointed out, this is where I'm gonna my usual rant with it seems these days with games coming out. This is a game that was released. It is not finished. But it was released as a finished game. To their credit, they're still diligently continuing to work on it. They're adding zones, content, quests, mobs, and even a magic type system, I've heard. So it's going to get a B, but I really wish it hadn't come out already the way that it's in as a finished game.
Cryptfox.
I gave it an NA, but just speaking from my business background, what I would do, honestly, is implement a very temporary cash shop if you guys are starting to like hurt on your subs to get the game exactly the way you want it. But make sure that that cash shop is sunset once the game is complete. I know you're gonna want to probably be, buffing that shop up, but you can use it in a sense to get the game to where the box price and the quality of the game matches. And then everything that you had in the shop prior to that point can be just heirloom items that people who have supported the game for the long run can have as like showing off, like I supported the game here, and then you just do away with the cash shop and go back to just the full box price. I think if you do that, it might help you out. But right now, I don't think that it's there for me. But yeah, NA for nothing. Thank you.
Wait, B?
NA.
Oh, NA.
Yeah. There's no cash shop. I don't really know how they want to do that, but I don't think the game is worth the
But I mean,
the
you're also
$5.
grading like box price and sub as part of that monetization.
Box price and sub.
Yep.
I don't feel like I got the value out of box price out of the game, honestly.
Okay.
So sorry.
Mujjin.
I'll just say that I'm going to give it an A for now because the way I see the game going, it's probably either just going to fade away or it's going to implement a cash shop to stay afloat, which is what a game does before it officially dies, is tries to milk it out with the cash shop and then it fades away. So A for now.
Nathan.
Yeah, so I'll make this quick, but this is my point of contention, okay? And I'm going to give credit to Sparoh because she's the one who in our chat said, hey, makes sense to put the complaint here, right? So that's where I'm going to put it. First of all, I really love only box price and sub. Huge shout out for them for trying to do that and for, even though they honestly aren't making bucket loads of money or anything, they're trying to stick to that and avoid going into the cash shop route because that's the root of death. However, here's where I have a problem. It's not actually a full release like Sparoh said. Here's why it makes me really mad, though. It's advertised as content from level 1 to 50 on their website right now. That is a lie. There is content up to 30-something, and that is it. You are out of content. That's a wrap. You're done. Now, here's why that pisses me off so much. Number one, I'm a streamer. Started playing the game on day one, telling everybody on my stream a lie because I believed what their website said. I would have never thought they'd put in black and white a blatant lie. So I'm telling people, no, you're wrong. There's content all the way up to level 50. I was wrong, so I lied to my entire community because I believed that no way would they lie right there on the box and when you buy the game, etc. But they did, and that is morally wrong, and that is the dirtiest, nastiest thing I've actually seen an MMO developer do, is sell you a product that they're blatantly lying, and it could have been avoided very easily. It could have been the max level is 30. Bam! Problem solved. It's that easy, folks. You didn't have to go to level 50. There's no rule that says MMOs have to be released and go to level 50. There's no rule. So release the game and max levels 30. And as you add content, you can expand the levels. And then we just think, cool, they're giving us new content. Not, oh, finally they're releasing the content that they promised me that I bought back then. That's not good. And because of that, I give it an F.
Ooh, I did not see that coming.
Spicy.
Strange turn of events.
Tetsu.
I gave it a score, but now I feel like I should go down because he made some help. But I'm gonna stick with my score. I gave it an A, not an A plus, because box price sub, no cash shop, just the way I like it. But I did feel like, to Sparoh's point, I agreed with her. Was basically it's not like a full game yet. I mean, it's a beta, to be honest. So because of that, I'm like, the cash shop money structure is what I want, but I'm not getting. I bought a pound of sugar, but really it's only like half a pound of sugar. So like, yeah, that's what I want, but it's not really everything that I'm supposed to be getting what I expect when I buy this thing. So, yeah, it's Fuzzy Boots. It is fully released, but I mean it's lacking a lot for whatever reason. I don't know the reason. I can only speculate, but they launched the game earlier than they should have, in my opinion. So I will leave it with an A. Good job with your model, but I mean you're not a full game yet, so maybe charge like $20 so more people into it could get to it and continue your sub.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, if they did the cash shop as a temporary thing just to get the game to where it's worth the box price, fine, then sunset the cash shop, because there's no difference from doing like a buy-in to support the game, for like imaginary items, and then doing the same thing with the cash shop just to get the game to where it's matching the value that they're charging for sticker
Well,
price.
see, there can't be such a thing as a temporary cash shop because those items will still exist in the world. And also, cash shops are exactly like a new tax. Once it's there, it's not going to go away.
Right.
Right,
In
but
the
you
history
can
of
plan for it and be communicative to the community. Say that the items will, just become cosmetics once the conversion happens.
In
and
the-
you
And
still
now people
support
have
the
stuff
game.
that no one else has.
yeah.
Well,
In the history of MMOs,
Aesthetically,
in the
but that's
history
how
of
you get
MMOs,
the-
does anybody know any cash shop that started and went away? Because I don't know any. I've never seen that happen.
Final Fantasy 14 has a cash shop, and everything in that cash shop is purely because you want it, not because you
Right,
need
but
it.
it didn't go away.
But it didn't go
Nobody's
away.
going to
But it
get rid
doesn't
of
go
it.
away, right?
Mm-mm.
I've never seen a cash shop go away.
Yeah,
They
and-
should
Well,
have put it-
Diablo 4 had a real life auction, and they sunset it.
We're going way.
That's
Yeah.
that's way out of.
Yeah.
All right, Desryn. Were we at Desryn? Desryn.
Desert.
Yep. So I definitely graded on the merits of the model, not exactly the product. So I'll just say the model A+, just because box price sub, I think that's a very fair thing for an MMO. However, as you guys have pointed out, like The game's not finished, even still after release. They're updating it a ton. Props to them. That's great. And they're increasing the sub, though, or at least stopping the promotional sub. Now, because that hasn't happened yet, as far as I know, my grade is an A+. I definitely feel like at this point you're paying a sub to help them finish the game, which doesn't feel good. So while that's my grade, I, like the others have said, there's some kind of qualifications that need to happen for it to stay that way. And I just like that they did. They're trying to stick to their guns. It's just I think the sub matches what you get. The current sub, $10 a month. I think that matches what you get right now. I actually think that's fair. I think the box price is probably too high considering the game's not done, but I think the sub price is fair. So now that it's increasing, and the box price, as far as I know, besides sales, isn't decreasing, I do feel that is unfair. But that's kind of props to the model. Not so great on the current state of things and implementation.
Nice. I gave it an A+. I kind of knew what I was getting into. So I didn't trust them to begin with. So when I paid the box price and I paid the sub, I just knew that like this wasn't a finished game, and I knew it wasn't going to be a finished game, and I knew that we were basically doing that. So I just I just knew that was the price. And honestly, I paid $32 or something to begin with, and then that got a free month, and then I paid 2 more months for $10 each. It's not, I feel like I got my money out of it, and I love the model, and I'm willing to support any model that does that. So A+ for me.
Yeah,
all right.
Exactly.
So we have 12 minutes left, and we still have lore, addictability, and overall grade. So we gotta keep pushing.
30-second timers on everything.
You can throw 2 Ds down for me. If you want.
Okay, so
Lore.
I'll give you surprisingly, I'm going to give this my lowest grade. It's actually a C+ for me on the lore immersion. The good part is I like some parts of the story and how they were telling it. There's almost no third-person narrative is very unique. I think there's a lot of room to grow the story and the narrative. The bad part is, there's just not enough sort of bespoke creatures to set this world apart from anything else. It's very undefined. The narrative is extremely buried in the dialogue. And if you like dialogue, great. If you don't, you're never going to get it. You're never going to find it. And so that's a good and a bad thing. It's good for me, but probably bad for everybody else. And I'm very sympathetic to that. So I was disappointed as I got deeper into it and sort of more into the game. So a C+.
Stans.
C- for me for very similar reasons. You really had to go out of your way and only get it through talking to people. There was a fundamental disconnect between lore and your actual gameplay out in the world. And that hurt it for me.
Yep. Sparoh.
Right, just bullet points. There's not enough direction for me. I have a journal with a bunch of quests that I'm not really feeling connected to. Other people having done the quests already make questing better and more interesting than just going through your journal and doing the quests. I'm still feeling a bit distant from the world. It's not calling to me outside of friends being on and playing. That's the only reason I really hop on is when there's other people already on. I need GPS on the map. We haven't really talked about the maps. It's just got like a pull-up map. You can see the zone, but you can't see where you're at on it. Personally, I need GPS to feel like you are here and you want to go somewhere else. Especially when you go into like things like Ember Veins, and when you come out, you're in some random place. That was crazy. I don't like the armor system. I find that very unimmersive. The fact that you get this nice piece of gear and all of a sudden you have to start taking off other pieces of gear because you're going to go overweight, or I don't know. I didn't like it. So I gave that my lowest grade with a C+.
Cryptfox.
I gave it a D. Like, the quest too long to read. Immersion. didn't really get it. I never really understood, any of the lore behind like why there was amplifiers. It wasn't presented in a consumable way for me.
Mujjin.
D.
I'm gonna say that I never really got pulled into it for immersion and what lore? There's lore in the game. Somebody pointed it to me. Never found it. F garbage. F.
Nathan.
Yeah, I thought that I kind of like the way they're doing the lore, and it's naturally progressing, and we're finding out more as time goes on, and they'll update the patch, and they'll introduce a new place where you go there and you learn more about what's going on. Then you're like, oh, that makes sense for XYZ. I like the mystery vibes, like you got the creatures near those stones that just appear sometimes. If you approach them, they disappear. We have no idea what those things are. Obviously, there's a plan for that in the future. A couple of NPCs even talk and mention them. I think it's very old school. It immersed me a lot because of kind of the opposite of I'm kind of the opposite of Sparoh, because I have to use Bluepitter for north, and I can see the map, and I can have to use waypoints to figure out where I'm at. I get super immersed in that kind of situation because I got to pay attention. I've got to kind of figure out where I'm at. I got to check the map, then look around. I think that's a really fun gameplay loop. It's not like a mandatory thing for me to enjoy an MMO, but it really felt like sense heading, but better because I didn't have to level it up. I just looked for Bluepitter. And I just really thought this was one of their high points. Was the lore could be better. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna sit here and say like it's the best lore ever, but the presentation of it and the way that we're slowly learning more is just really fun to me. So I give it an A+.
First of all, where was the hookup? I had no idea Bluepitter was always north.
Yeah. Yep.
We said it all the time.
Yeah, we said that all the time, Draq.
Yeah.
On the 201? I never heard that.
We would always make
Draq,
Bluepitter.
we talked about it in the
totally
101, I
just-
guarantee.
Totally just buzzed over my head. I had no idea. I was always lost all the time.
Never gonna change.
Tetsu.
So I give it a B. I thought the lore, like Nathan said, it wasn't crazy good, but I don't require much from my lore when it comes to MMOs. Like, you just give me something simple, something basic. That's all I need. If I want a lore, I'll go play an RPG, like an offline RPG. So for me, an MMO is going out there, discovering stuff with people. Very important. Which that did. I had to discover stuff because there were no landmarks. There was no compass. It was just Bluepitter. So I had to be, I loved like, okay, yep, there's a tower here, Raven Rock over there. If people say, where am I? I'm like, what do you see around you? I guided people many times. Like, what do you see? I see this. Okay, cool. So like, I just had to go in my head. Yep, I just traveled, in my mind. This is the path you take. All right, cool, perfect. And it kept me going back to it because I'm like, all right, I want to see that next area, that desert area where there's giant rib cages lying around. Like, what is that? Like, and then I jump in. The music's great. So it did a pretty good job of immersing me because I had to learn everything. I like having no GPS. I like having no map or whatever. So that immerses me as sometimes as annoying as it is, because I'm not gonna lie and say this is great, I'm lost. No, I was annoyed at times, but overall, the struggle kept me immersed. It kept me wanting to like find things, remembering things. So yeah, great immersion. My character again, that kind of lost a little immersion there because I wish I had. But my skeleton helmet was pretty cool. But yeah, lore was okay, but I don't need much. Immersion was great because I really had to get to know the world. So yeah, B.
Des.
So the initial introduction to the world, I actually really liked. Coming out of this Darkland. Was it the Darklands? Something
the
like
Darklands.
that, right?
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah,
cross the bridge from the Darklands.
To like make the world feel really dangerous. There's this wall and everything. But then you get to the other side of the wall, and it's like kind of nothing's really changed, honestly. But yeah, I also really like the limited map. I loved, Fog of War and landmarks, no player marker. Not having a compass is absolutely stupid. I'm sorry, but I did love the map implementation a lot. Now, leading to the main point, which is that everything just felt so last minute. Like more than New World, which I hate to say that,
It's
but
hard.
it legit feels like it wasn't thought out at all beforehand. Like there's no sense of place really for me in that world, and that whole kind of last minute feeling, it really wore on me. And it continues to this day, which unfortunately we're kind of past the point where it can go backwards or anything. They can't rethink out the whole world, right? They can't make things connected suddenly without going back on everything that they've written already. And the NPC perspectives, I mentioned that already. That really helped my grade. I realize this grade is going to be a lot higher than I might really do it, just because there are a few little details, but the whole not like the world not being working with itself much, like it feels so like an afterthought. Like and even in response to players, and this is kind of a big problem to me, and a big reason why I don't have as much trust in the game as it's being developed now. And that's like adding the giant creatures to zones. I know a lot of like you guys have mentioned it, and everyone's like, that's really, really cool. To me, I'm like, that's super dumb. There's no reason for them to be there. Like the NPCs have nothing to say about it. Why are these giant versions? It's like, just a
It's a
big
great
model.
point. Yeah.
Like they're just there because they thought it was cool or players asked for it. It was like 100% just gameplay reasons, which tells me that the world is secondary. They don't care, or they just haven't bothered to think about it much. And so now the world is just going to continue to be served only by gameplay. They're just going to add gameplay to try to make the game feel good, but the world itself is basically lost to me. So that really hurt and gave me I really wanted to get into sea territory, but the few things I pointed out earlier, like the map and everything, brought it up. So I am a B-, which is probably higher than it should be, considering how I feel about the rest of it. But I never found myself immersed, but those little details got me to B-.
All right. We're going into some dangerous territory here. And I know we're not supposed to speak about this, but I'm just going to mention it in passing. What it feels like to me, just me, what it feels like to me is that they had a game that had a lot of certain amount of lore, and then last minute they might have switched to something else. That's kind of what it feels like to me. And so that really
anything.
What?
We don't know for a fact that happened.
I don't know. I have no inside information. I don't know anything. I'm just saying that that's what it feels like to me. And so because it feels that way, because everything feels like that, like we just kind of threw it out there because we had to redo the lore, it gets a D. All right. Moving on. We are into addictability/fun. Lightning round, go.
Yeah, lightning round. Okay, it was really enjoyable with friends. We had the classic spirit of old MMOs. Public successes were great. Public failures were also great in a good way, in a bad way. It's addictive in all the right ways. Getting the next level, looking for a new item, unexplored areas, rare mobs. How many times did we find a cool rare mob on a stream? That's all fun. The bad, if only there was magic, the game would be way more popular. It's a population dependent game. Level grind is very slow. You end up doing the same things for way too long. And level speed feels intentionally slowed down just to slow players down due to lack of content. So that's a real downer for me. That takes it out of A. It goes into a B+ because I like the game overall, but that's for sure a thing.
Stand in the fire, lightning round.
For me, this is a C+. I was happy to log in when it was Embers night to play Embers with our groups. I didn't have any great draw to log in outside of those times.
Sparoh, fun addictability.
Friends and community make this game a lot more fun than it would be otherwise. Dungeons with a good group can be challenging and lots of fun. Finding a guild or group of friends that play when you do make this game much more enjoyable. Like Pantheon, this game relies on community, the community aspect. With a solid community, even it's relatively small, it has the potential to succeed. EA is choosing to go with its strengths and enjoy a possibly smaller community, but focusing on a family feel. You can get lost in giant guilds or hordes of people, but seeing that one person struggle with spiders, as you are, gives you the courage to offer to group with that person, and that can make the game a lot more enjoyable and approachable. So what did I give it? B.
Cryptfox, addictability/fun.
I gave it a D. Like, I'm not really interested in continuing playing this game. I already uninstalled it. Like, I had a very terrible experience playing the game as a tank. I didn't like reading the quests. I didn't like the gear, so I didn't really care to get involved in the crafting. Um, the abilities were lackluster. The visuals of them, there was nothing there. You just kind of knew that you did it. There's nothing keeping me playing this game. D.
Mujjin, addictability fun.
I'll say I had some fun at the start, but that quickly went away. Had fun making sharing his caring video for Nathan with the urine. So there's a little bit of fun that I had to make it myself, basically. I'm gonna give it an F+. I uninstalled it the moment we said we're done.
So is that a higher grade than Fractured Online or not?
I don't think so. I think I had more fun with Fractured.
Oh, brutal!
He did. He tells me all the time. He did.
Wow.
No
I had more
way.
fun. I had more fun with Fracture too.
Oh, brutal!
No
Brutal!
way.
Yeah, because
Nathan,
there
Not
was
even
variety.
close.
Nathan,
There was
addictability/fun.
variety. There was
So-
variety. The
so I'll-
abilities were better.
So I want to say that I think this has got the perfect gameplay loop. Okay, the gameplay loop, the basic gameplay loop, is exactly what Pantheon fans have been begging for. Okay,
It's true.
the basic gameplay loop is really freaking good. So I'm a very basic guy. I was expecting all this fancy stuff with Pantheon. Okay, I really wasn't. I'm glad it's there. Etc. But I wasn't expecting it. I didn't need it. Okay, so I had a lot of fun. Now here's the problem though with addictability and fun is that you don't need a science degree to know when you're making a game that's an MMO that is fantasy that you make a goblin first. Don't make a bear. Don't make a deer. Don't make a bug. Make a goblin. Make an orc. Make cool monsters that we really enjoy killing millions of, right? It's way more fun to kill 1,000 goblins is to kill 1,000 bears. And it's just hard for me to imagine if they're designing this game. They're like, okay, this cave. They're like, put bears in it. They're like, but we put bears here, 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 and here. And they're like, yep, put bears in the cave too.
Bears everywhere.
Guys, like, come on. It's simple, easy science to please a nerd. Goblins, orcs, elves, magic, right? Like, these things make us really excited every single time. It never fails. So, but overall, I'm having a lot of fun with it. I'm going to continue playing it, so I give it a B.
Tetsu, fun, addictability.
Yeah, I think it was quite addictive. I logged in almost every day when we were playing it. Like I got my ward up to like level like 24 or 25 or something like that before I stopped playing. And that wasn't Ember's fault. It just happened to my favorite game of all time re-release. So that kind of stinks for Embers Adrift. But yeah, I mean I logged in every single day. For the most part, at least 5 days a week. And I wanted to keep exploring. I wanted to see the next area. And like Nathan said, it is like I said this beginning, it's budget Pantheon. This is what people want. If this is what you wanted, maybe not as polished, but this is what you're asking for. This is Pantheon released a year ago or something like that, or 2 years ago. This is probably what you would have got, something similar to this. So, in my opinion, if you don't like this, Pantheon may not be up your alley.
I think that's a strong
No.
statement. This game is very
No.
incomplete.
Error.
That's a very
Doesn't agree
strong
with
statement.
No.
Reword
I
that.
don't know.
I know what he meant.
I know
Yeah,
it, yeah.
Maybe I said I was a little strong on it, but It's the same skeleton. It's the same skeleton.
Skeleton. Right?
Is what I'll say. Let me put it that way. I'm sorry. Same skeleton. And so same gameplay loop. It kept me. I found it fun, so I gave it a B+. That's all I'll say. Maybe I'm a little too hard on it, but yeah.
And by the way, Pantheon isn't just wearing muscle and tissue and skin. They're also wearing some jackets, hats, and some sweet swag too. By the way, if we're going to use the skeleton analogy.
Yeah, if this is if a Pantheon's going to be Lamborghini, this is a Model T Ford, but it's still a car.
But the biggest difference is that like we've seen in like Pantheon videos, like very defining landmarks. And you can get by from what they showed without, having a map, right? But
There's
in
Raven Rock.
here,
Raven Rock's a defining landmark. It's exactly the same thing.
I felt like there's tons of landmarks.
I mean, that's how
Right,
you got
but
around that area. Was looking
but
for
if you
Raven Rock.
don't see the Raven Rock, how are you gonna get to it? Like you have to memorize it, right? And like getting oriented in the game is just very difficult.
And you can see, like, when you get to some of these things, like a monument or Raven Rock or an Ember Ring, it does light up on your map when you are there. So
When
you
you're there.
do see something.
Tetsu's a potster. That's what I'm changing his
Oh.
name for the next stream. Tetsu the potster.
Desryn, you need to follow up a spicy
Yeah.
conversation with your
About
comment.
Desryn.
that.
Yeah.
So
Hit it.
Yeah, the community is great. It kind of makes the game, honestly, at this point. I definitely agree with that. Initially, I was having a lot of fun because new MMO launches are fun, right? Like, so I was playing a bunch when the game came out. But as the luster kind of wore off, I only was playing like the last few sessions we had of the 201. That was the only time I was playing anymore. So yeah, it just feels too incomplete to commit to at this point, and I gave it a C+. It might have been too early to tell, and I am also probably not going to continue playing, unfortunately.
So I'm going to take a few issues with things that were said. I agree with some of it. I think the bones of Embers Adrift is absolutely, and the thought process and the passion of Embers Adrift is absolutely Pantheon Light. I can get there. That's not a problem. But the completed product, the sum of all the parts, like it's in Unity, it's group centric, it's got all the things that I want. And on paper, I should love this MMO. I am a grinder. I am I have no problem just like staying up all night doing all the things. This is not a problem for me. But the sum of the parts just aren't fun. It's just not fun. And I'm sorry, I would have been your biggest fan, but it's just not fun. And I don't know exactly what makes it not fun. But I really want, even the magic thing aside, like I'm take totally out. It's just not fun. I just don't enjoy it. And I don't know what it is about it. And I can say that I know, I can't tell you how I know, but I can say that I know that I enjoy Pantheon. But I don't enjoy Embers, and I'm sorry. I really wanted to. I really wanted to enjoy Embers Adrift. I just don't. It's boring and it's monotonous and it's just not fun. So it gets a C, and that's super generous. So, overall grade. The overall grade is not an average. It's just your overall grade for the game.
Yep, overall grade is an A. This is the best. This is my favorite game that we've played for the show. It's got all the things, the tenets that Pantheon talks about. Content is king. Yes, it doesn't have but the idea that content is king. Magic is essential. I should only rephrase what I said because that doesn't make a lot of sense. What Pantheon says about tenets is that content is king. So the takeaway from that here is why a game like this needs it to be successful. Magic is also essential. They don't have it. But playing with other people with them and not beside them is the key. And the community matters. This game's got a great community. It's got a great community manager. They've done a lot for the community. The way they run events, it's an A. I had a great time playing this game. I'm going to keep playing it, and I really think it's the closest thing to Pantheon that we have until Pantheon gets here.
Stands.
I gave it a rising C+.
A rising C+.
Because as we kept playing, especially when I got to play the Juggernaut for the 201, my impression of the game overall has gotten better. And as I've seen the team work on putting more out there, right now it is a unit of reasonably competent MMO. But I really think if they can keep going, if they can manage to stay afloat for, another 6 months and keep development going, I think we're going to see a really enjoyable game. And for right now, I'm going to be sticking around at least often enough to log in periodically and see if anybody needs a low-level Juggernaut.
There you go. I moved it to the top part of the square. It's rising C+.
Awesome. Draq, the graphic designer.
This game definitely has enough of those old school feels and tenets with modern adjustments made to it to have me willing to be patient with its shortcomings that it definitely has. But as I've gotten to know some of the community, and as was stated, Aloha, the community manager, they're a great community. The folks that have stuck around are less inclined to just kind of consume a game and move on. They seem much more interested in grouping, building the community up, and just enjoying the content as they're able to release it. So it's getting overall a B.
Cryptfox.
I gave it a D overall. I can't enjoy the community because I don't enjoy the content. I can't enjoy the content because there's no variation of armor, no, appeal of skills, no appeal of class identity. The quests are too long to read, and I'm a busy person. If I have to sit and read one quest for like 5-6 minutes, I'm taking too long. I want to spend like a minute max to read a quest, understand what I have to do, and go do it. And maybe, be mystified by the world as I do it. I don't get that from this game. Not even a little bit. I'm sorry. It needs work. I hope that it gets better.
Mujjin.
Just put it out there. Overall, it's going to be an F+.
Love that.
Didn't pull me in. I don't feel I'm not getting the old school feeling at all. I just don't get what everybody else is getting. Apparently, I'm gonna put this out here. Just because you offer a discount doesn't make it good. I mean, I could take a crap on a plate, form it into a steak, and sell it to you for $3. You gonna eat that steak? I hope not.
Not sure about that one. What's your grade? Oh no, you did F+. Nathan, sorry.
Here's the deal. I'm going to continue playing it. I like the game. I'm kind of and Mujjin has, by the way, on the side, come to me and been like, "Tell me what the old school feeling is," because he really wanted to feel it, right? And for some reason, he didn't get those vibes. I totally do. I like the game a lot. I think it's actually the best game to come out MMO-wise in a really long time. They have some major missteps, obviously, but the actual gameplay loop and enjoyment I get logging on and leveling up and grouping up and exploring new places is really high. I love the game a lot. I can't give it as good of a score as I would like to give it because I really do like it because of the lies on their website, mixed with no magic, and not enough mobs. Doesn't mean that I will still continue recommending it to my community. With those caveats, I will always explain those things when I'm recommending it. But so I give it a B+.
Tetsu.
I give it a B+ as well. I think it's exactly what I've been looking for since. And Nathan said a game like this hasn't come out in so long. And I think Vanguard would be the last one that came out that was in this style of game. After that, it was just WoW clones for the most part. Good or bad, and I'm not saying that it sounds in a bad way. There's some good ones. Or let me rephrase it. There's modern MMO. After that was just modern style MMOs, no more classic style. So this is the newest classic MMO we've had since Vanguard, is what I'm trying to say. So because of that, it has everything I want at its core, but it's not fleshed out. It's but what I said earlier, it's not a finished game, and I think we all know that. But given some more time, I think it'll definitely get better. I wish they would have just waited and then given us that. But it is what it is. So I think it's a B plus because it's a great game. It just needs tendons and flesh and armor and everything else. But it's the bones.
Des.
Okay. So it's a great accomplishment to bring an MMORPG to launch. And so I have to commend the team for making that happen with, being a small team. And that they're continuing to support and add to the game is a really big bonus for sure. So a lot of my grading is kind of like using that lens. It's a small team, it's an MMO, huge project and whatever. But I can't honestly give anything higher than a B-, which is what I'm going to give it, considering how incomplete the game still feels. And I hate to say it, but I can't avoid how much it feels like Embers just lacks a soul. Just the game, of course. Like the community, as we've said a bunch of times, has been super great. Guys, shout out to Ella a bunch, and for good reason. And the developers, seem to want to make a good game. But, just caring about what the players think and about their product and all that, like that only goes so far. In the end, while I enjoy some of the mechanics, I don't think I can get myself into the game long term. And I think it's just a great example of a game that needs to be more than just classically spirited to actually stand on its own in our crowd. I wish them the best, as they kind of continue to add to the game, but you can't add a living, breathing world after the fact, and that's already been kind of ruined for me. It has some mechanical merits, but it would take me a lot to get back into this game, and I don't think redoing the world is going to happen. So, yeah, B-. Sorry, guys.
E-. Yeah, as I said before, I wanted to like this game. I desperately wanted it to be good. I desperately love the old school MMO feel. I love the idea. I love the group centric. I love all the pieces. But the sum does not it just doesn't get me over the hump. It's not fun. And I'm not upset that I spent $40. I'm not upset that we've spent 2.5 months playing it. I've had fun. But it's just not something that I can consider continuing past this. I wish it all the best, and I hope it succeeds, because I hope all MMOs succeed, because we need more MMOs with more players. I gave it a C+. Not horrible, but just doesn't do it for me at all. All right, guys, so that's Embers Adrift. Put a fork in it. It's done.
One more thing before we sign off. I want to mention,
put a bow on it, Therek. Put a bow.
They are doing a free weekend
at
the end of the month, January 27th to the 29th or 30th, I think, Friday to the Sunday, and you can play the game for free. Try it out. I am going to be streaming it at some point, I think Saturday morning. Check us out on YouTube. Check out our YouTube channel, Pantheon Plus, and we'll be me and some people here. I don't know who yet, but some people will be streaming some Embers and potentially giving away keys. I know that Elo has talked about giving those out to give away. So,
very exciting.
Yeah, may as well try it yourself, I guess.
Yeah.
'Cause what do we know?
What do we know? Yeah, definitely give it a shot.
Varied.
We're very varied.
It's free, so you should try it if you haven't already, because like we said, most of us agree it has the bones Pantheon does. So if you're not in on if you're not in as a VIP for the Pantheon testing that same weekend, you might as well play the next best thing available to us right now, which is Embers Adrift.
Yes. So this is a big moment. for MMO 101/201. We are now moving on to Lotro. This will be the very first time that we have repeated an MMO. So this is a big deal. What we're going to do is we're going to add some people, which you'll find out during the streams. And then we're going to focus on dungeon content. And then we're actually going to focus on raid content. And we've never done any raiding on the MMO 101 or 201. So that's going to be a very different feel, and it's going to be super exciting. So that will start next Tuesday and next Thursday. The 101's on Tuesday, the 201's on Thursday. So that's going to be super exciting. So make sure that you come back for that. We're going to be playing that. Lotro, I think we're in for Lotro for a while. I think everybody's excited about it. And we're going to be in for some Lotro dungeon running and some Lotro raiding for a while. So we're really excited to do that. We also have a Pantheon dev stream this week, Parting the Veil, Joppa and Minus. And that will also include then the P+U2, the after party with Desryn. Do we have a confirmation of a Redbeard and a Man of Rohan?
Yep, they should be there.
Nice. So that'll be exciting. And then Nathan Napalm, you got stuff you want to talk about this week?
Yeah, man. This week is Saturday. I had to postpone MMO Cop the movie due to internet issues. I just got resolved this morning. So MMO Cop the movie is even better, even more absurdity added to it, and it's coming out this Saturday, 11 p.m. Central, 12 a.m. Eastern.
Nice. Sparoh, you got anything going on?
Nope, just the 101 stuff and Pantheon stuff. That's it.
Nice. Cryptfox, what you got?
Yeah, this Saturday, 10 a.m. for about 4 or 5 hours, I'm going to be playing an RPG called Swan Song. It's Vampire the Masquerade Swan Song. It plays out kind of like Until Dawn or The Quarry. If you guys are familiar with tabletops like D&D and, Vampire the Masquerade is one of them. This is very much like a story-based RPG, choice-based game. It plays out like a movie. So if you like that kind of stuff, come hang out.
Very cool. Mujjin, got any streaming going on or just chilling?
Just putting out videos. I got plans in my head, but until I'm actually doing them, I don't really want to announce them in case I decide not to do them. Then it kind of makes me look bad if I don't do them. So just put out the content I've been putting out, and that's about it.
Sounds good. All right, yeah. Somebody in chat just said we're losing Sparoh on the 201. So these are 2 separate groups of 6. There's no more cross pollination between the 101 and the 201. So it'll be super exciting.
Believe it when I see it.
Sparoh knows where the bread is buttered. She'll come back to us.
All right, everybody.
I'm wondering how many weeks before I end up filling somebody's role.
That's what I mean. There'll be fill-ins.
I'm sure guys have buttered bread.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I've had a super fun time. I'm sorry it went a little long. I've tried my best to keep it to 2 hours, but it just wasn't happening. And you guys wanted to talk about it too much. So, but we will see you all next week. Everybody, wave bye-bye to the people.
Good, everyone.
Bye.